Can you see us? We can see and hear you okay.
Am I back?
Your voice is back.
Okay. I don't know. Carl's definitely got a great internet connection or at his place. I
Now,
don't know why
now you're
we can
back.
see.
that glitch happened, but I feel like we're all back.
And with that, welcome back
Okay.
to Executive Production. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. I'm Sweets. Down below is CY. And over here is Forrest. It's the first time we're bringing someone else on. So, Forrest, first off, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here.
So, the big theme we talked a lot about before this is what is this for, anyways? I asked CY a couple weeks ago who are some artists we should invite, and the first and only name he gave me was Forrest. And so we want to get to how you're using in process, but to get started, I don't know which one of you two wants to pick it up, but how did you guys begin your relationship between Forrest and CY? How did those two nodes come to form a relationship?
I can start off. I can
I
tell my
would
version
love
of the story. Okay,
Please.
awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I think it's cool that we actually figured out down the line, that CY had heard one of my songs before we ever crossed paths. You heard Love Is Not Enough, my collab with Miami Horror. And so I came through the Friends with Benefits Fellowship Program from 2021 to 2022. And at the end of that, we were tasked with minting an NFT as part of the fellowship's collection. And so that was my first ever NFT. And it was a music NFT, one of one on catalog of my song Prophecy of the Morning Dew. And CY bid on it. And so did Yuri. But CY won out in the end. And it was, a really incredible experience for me to have one person support and value my work, more than Spotify had with 700,000 streams, I think it had at the time. It was more financial compensation than we had seen from Spotify. And just the impact of that coming from one person, it shattered something in my brain as someone who had been in the traditional music industry for 10, 15 years at that point. And I was like, who is this person who cares about me and this work in this way? And so we hopped on a Zoom call and chopped it up, and we connected a couple times online before kind of bumping into each other at the first FWB Fest in August of 2022. And CY said, I have an experiment that I would love to run with you. Let's grab lunch and see if it's a vibe. So later that day, we got a bite, and he said, I would love for you to make visible your creative process on the blockchain. And I will support you with stipends, kind of like grants, for you to do that. And so we began that autumn, and here we are 3 years later, and we've had a really incredible journey of friendship and artist-patron relationship. And there's just so much richness. Also, I feel like in just the different types of mentorship that CY gives me. He's such an intelligent person with such a massive heart, and he makes his compassion so visible to everyone in his community through the choices that he makes to support us and believe in us. And just having someone in my corner who believes in me and sees the value in who I am as an artist and a thinker has been completely life-changing. And I tell him that a lot because it's very true, and I want him to know. So that's kind of like a Cole's notes, I would say, of our relationship to date.
Wow, thanks for that. That was incredible. I love hearing that side of the story. And I will sort of like, as a sort of a reflective part of that, that initial call, there's this sort of like a concurrent fascination of like, who is this artist who has time out of their artistry to carve out for thinking about tech in this way, right? It's like such a novel curiosity and strong push to not just like be fascinated by technology, but push into it and do something with it that makes possible this kind of like, experimentation and connection. And that's really, I think, the root of what I think has gotten us here, which is this like mutual curiosity about how culture is made, the process by which it's made, and how to make that visible.
Yeah.
And so I'll take, I mean, and in some sense, that's the TLDR for like why is in processing, which is to make all that process that I think we all take for granted, to make it visible and to, in some sense, give it value, and not just like financial value, but really just like emotional and communal value, as this is part of what it means to be human, to be creating together.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that has been very humanizing about the nature of our relationship, has been your curiosity in my creative process, where you don't just want to see this final shrink wrapped master file. You want to see the different processes and stages that I've gone through as a human and an artist and someone who feels and moves through the world and thinks deeply and has emotions and these different cycles of life that we go through. Like, that is really what makes the art. And your curiosity to surface that and have it be visible to you and to the audience has been very humanizing for me, coming from the trad industry that was just about the masters and social media hype. It was very flattening, but this has helped me to see myself as an artist through so many more dimensions and contexts and mediums as well.
Yeah. I feel like we are all experimenting. Like, the three of us in this call are part of this grand experiment to make visible the messy, dirty, but ultimately the chewiest parts of the story of what it means to make new things from what we find around us and what inspires us around us.
Exactly.
And that's in some sense like what I feel like being a human amongst other humans is all about. It is we're all sort of like making, sharing, and synthesizing and creating new things to share. And in process is like a venue that is not so performative, like, where I mean, all art meant to be put on displays, whether you talk about galleries or whether you talk about social media. There is a performative aspect to it, which I feel like in process makes deprioritizes in exchange for just being raw, but safe in a place to share the messier parts of what it takes to build towards a vision.
Oh,
And
you
my
could there at
internet
the very end,
is
but
I'm sure he'll be back in a second.
I'm sure he'll be back in a moment.
I heard you say that something kind of snapped, or like something changed. It sounds like before you had this patron relationship, you were very much in the traditional side of, we're trying to get streams, we're trying to get views, we're trying to get mass exposure, and you're going for like volume and breadth. And now when I tried to reach out to you to get you on, you didn't even see my message for weeks.
Nah, dog, I didn't.
And so it seems like you have kind of switched to now being like very much in your cave, focusing on your craft, and you'll put things out to the world and you'll like toss them out, but you're less receptive to any random Joe kind of needing to be there for all of that. I'm curious, what was that change that you experienced when you had someone like CY step into your world?
Yeah, well, it's been a process for me as well to relax my nervous system into this new way of functioning. And it was at the top of 2025. So, years after we started our patron artist relationship, that I spontaneously deleted Instagram off my phone and just never put it back. It just never came back onto my phone. And I think what you were saying, Sweetman, about how in the trad music industry, I was really encouraged myself to go for as much, width. I tried to cover as much surface area as I could in terms of having the number go up for followers and streams. And I think something that has been so healing and gratifying, and like I'm still continuing to process in the dynamic with CY, is that he's not just looking for the number to go up in that way. He wants to give me space to cultivate and create new culture. And so the incentive is different. And so I'm like, okay, well, how can I put myself in the best possible position to be the most innovative and in integrity culture creator that I can be? And for me, in asking that question, not being on socials has been a part of the answer in this stage of my journey. So I've been, off Instagram and Twitter more or less for 10 and a half months now, 10 and a half months. And so I have so much more autonomy over my inputs as an artist. And a lot of the static around who I felt like I should be, or this feeling of competing or comparing myself, it's simply not in my field of view. And it's been not in my field of view for so long that it's not a part of how I think about myself in the same way anymore. And so this enables me to create from a more authentic place and a more courageous place, and just a more specific place of like, what do I want to see? What do I want to make? What could I make? And when I do go onto the internet, it's more intentional. For me, it's like I listen to a lot of astrology. So just like spiritual downloads, and I study other artists. Like I just finished watching like a documentary about Basquiat. And Yuri and I, we're collaborating right now, and we're always bouncing stuff around. He's been teaching me so much about culture and art as well. So being able to step back from being so accessible to, yes, people reaching out, but also to seeing other people's content. I have a clean slate, and I know who I am now more, aside from the static that was my feeds.
It's a very powerful thing to not have that influence constantly of it's like a toxin in us to be seeing constantly comparing ourselves to others. And for you to be able to have that freedom is like the goal of artistry, to like live in your purpose and not have to constantly be building for someone else. I agree. That's something I found with CY as well. Is when we started these calls, I was asking him like, what are you expecting of me? And he kept being like, I just want to see the ball move forward. Like I don't have concrete deliverables. I don't have concrete outcomes. I believe in this thing. And as long as you're moving it forward, like that is what I care about. So for CY on your side, there are artists, every artist is out there trying to get breath and trying to get in front of your eyeballs. For some reason, Forrest like hit a chord with you, and not only did you buy, but you brought to him this idea of continued grants or these stipends. What did you see, or what stuck out to you? You mentioned his usage of technology. Was that it, or what was it that you saw? Was there, could you expand a little bit more on why not just buy, but why continue this relationship for 3+ years?
That's a great question. And I think it speaks to this general sense that we know collectively that technology is this sort of carrier wave of culture, and we're all living it in real time. And there's a part of me that's always felt a frustration with, adhesion to formats that artists usually, especially young artists, come up in, and we all, when we're starting to create things, want to pattern match with things that we think of as like these are the successful examples. And I think that is a necessary part of beginning something. But there's a point where the artistry or the craft has been mastered to a point where, yes, you can create for the formats that are already understood, but there's no reason to be held in by those formats, to tell the stories, to share the feelings, to do whatever it is that you want to do. And to me, that's the envelope that constantly needs to be pushed, because that's naturally being pushed by technology. The tools are constantly changing. What are the new ways to share what we have to share with each other through these tools that feels right, that feels resonant with other people? And as a counterpoint to that, that does not necessarily serve a platform that has its own set of rules that it's trying to satisfy. So I look at this as like, it's a template for being someone who has the ability to push culture forward and do it in a way that's not purely for the motive that a platform wants to take. So, going back to your original question, like I found Forrest was so open minded in a free thinking kind of way, in an open, in a receptive kind of way, but also sort of like a creative sort of synthesis of what he saw around him to actualize. That it's that sort of fundamental dynamism of like seeing, feeling, synthesizing, and then creating, like in a fearless manner. That is like that's sort of like what I want to put wood behind, because I think those are the people who have that energy are the people who help really push envelopes. Like you look at Basquiat as an example, like often it's the weirdos who have sort of an iconoclast view, but also have a way of interfacing with the world at large, that end up finding new avenues that are not necessarily like sort of like commercial vectors to take, but which ultimately like inspire and influence people years, months, decades, whatever afterwards. And I don't want, it's not like this isn't going to happen anyway. Like there's in the past, like, the record industry, radio, whatever it was, like publishing, has always sort of been this sort of like stanchion of what culture is built around and on top of. But we're in this phase now where there's like phase shifts going on around us. I want artists like Forrest, and there's pretty much, I would say, any artist who came up in the NFT era has this fundamental energy in them. Like if they were in it and they stuck around it, not just because it made the money, because it was fundamentally an interesting medium that they were curious to explore, like that energy, I think, is what builds the modern Basquiats, the modern Andy Warhols, the people who see a thing and just want to fuck shit up because it's really interesting. And find that audience, find that resonance with either an audience of other artists or people out there who are hungry for creative energy.
Yeah.
I also feel like Forrest has opened something in you, like him coming into this call. I mentioned at the start, you normally don't have anything to add to the agenda, but you came into this and you had something, and I heard you use like emotional words to describe why, and it was just like, whoa, I don't think I've heard you talk about that before. And it feels like Forrest has, on his art or his way of expressing himself and how he focuses his ideas into words and into actions, has unlocked something inside of you. And it's cool to see you, someone that I've been interacting with on calls for a couple months, seeing this person come into the graph and then a whole new side of you just getting opened up. And it makes a little bit more sense of like, okay, Forrest is a key to the soul of CY that is opening up something that was not expressed before. And I think something I would, as we start to wrap up on this call for today, Forrest, I want to directly ask of what's it been like for you to be creating, and how has your relationship evolved using In-Process, or how has, this is a tool that's been around for about a year now. You've been the biggest artist, the most consistent artist on In-Process. How does In-Process, you don't post on Instagram anymore, you don't post on these other platforms, you are continuing to post on In-Process. What role does it serve, or how is either focusing on what role does it serve in your own artistic career, or within your relationship of CY, what is the role that In-Process serves?
Yeah, great question. Well, I was posting weekly on Zora for years, and then some changes were coming in at Zora right around the same time that In-Process was getting started up, and Zora wasn't feeling as intuitive for me to use. And I heard about In-Process. CY told me that you and Latasha were creating it, and I was like, great, say less, I'm moving to In-Process. And yeah, it's been heartwarming to be on In Process because it is our community. And so when I go onto the site, I see a timeline of friends and people who I know in person, in real life, people who I know that, dear ones to me are also working with. Like if I don't know them, I know that they're part of the community. And so there's this feeling of being in this cozy corner of the internet that I really value about In Process. I also just like the aesthetic. I like the simplicity of it. I like that it's focused around exactly what I'm using it for, which is documenting the messy and imperfect in-betweens as I journey towards creating these kind of final products. And I don't know necessarily what those final products are going to be. They could be songs, they could be books, they could be paintings. There's lots of different mediums that I'm very excited to be like dabbling in and creating in right now. But being able to post on In Process, which I now actually do every day. I've been doing it daily for how many months now? 5 months, 4 months?
It feels like that long, yeah.
Yeah, it's been about that long. And so it's a part of my daily routine. And there's not many things that are a part of my daily routine, but going on In Process and just saying, what did I do today? What did I create today? Is so gratifying because it helps me to track this very sacred and precious process to me, which is my self-expression. And the reason my self-expression means so much to me is because it is how I get to learn how I am. It locates me in time and space and emotion. That is what creating does for me. And so it brings me into my body, it brings me into the present moment, and it grounds me to create. So I'm always creating and I'm always thinking about creation. And some days I'll mint a photo of the different books that I'm reading or the journals that I'm opening up while I'm looking for lyrics. Some days it's demos that are super raw and that are never going to go anywhere and that would have just lived on my hard drive otherwise. So I think being able to make visible these gritty little moments of my life and my creative journey is really lovely for me to get to reflect on them and document them. So that's like personally with myself, but then also to make them visible to CY, who is someone who has and continues to really impact my life in such a profound and positive way. Feels really great for me. Just to get to like drop him a line and just be like, this is what I minted today. To make that visible and to have that witnessed by someone who is enabling this freedom of expression and this evolution that I'm experiencing as an artist feels really great for me. And also sometimes I'll drop them to Yuri, who I'm working on a concept album with right now. So that feels good too, to have a place where I can, just make visible these little micro moments and steps that I'm taking in my creation journey.
Thank you, Forrest, for joining us today. Thank you, CY, for inviting Forrest. And we will be back in 2 weeks for our next episode. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me.